Hi all, my name is Christy. I am a chronic pain patient. I want to take this opportunity to tell my story. Thanks for, hopping on. I'm glad you're here. I am very soft-spoken, so I apologize. In order for me to be louder, I would have to scream, and that's just not me. Um, so I hope it's okay and you can hear me well enough. Start out by kind of giving you an idea of when this all started for me. Back in about 2002 was when I first started having back pain issues, along with some miscellaneous symptoms, fatigue, not being able to sleep at night, um, just a bunch of miscellaneous symptoms. I dealt with this for, like many of us, for a while. Finally, back in 2005, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Like I think many of us were and have been. It's kind of like, and I do have fibromyalgia. I do believe that. I do believe I've always had it. But it wasn't the only key factor for me at the time of what was going on. In between 2005 and 2007, I also was having a lot of issues with chronic pain with endometriosis. I ended up having, in 2009, an ablation, and I'm trying to do the math to figure out how old I was. I want to say I was maybe 24ish, somewhere around there, when I ended up having the ablation, which kind of meant that my childbearing years were also over and being taken from me. Then in 2007, 2008, in between all this time from 2002 to 2008, mind you, my pain, especially the back pain, was just tremendously worsening through those years, more than just the fibro. And I think I had gone to 4 different rheumatologists. I think the 5th one is when I finally got my diagnosis, which we'll go over here in a minute. 2007 to 2008, I ended up having what they believe were multiple episodes of TIAs, transient attacks. I was then, ran through the loads of testing. Came back, they found that I had factor V Leiden, which is a blood clotting disorder. Then moving on to 2011, and we're going to go back to each of these years, each of these diagnoses, and go more in depth as to into a lot of things. But I kind of just want to give a rough idea of a timeline of when, my diagnosis took place. In 2011, I was finally diagnosed. Now, mind you, this would be my 5th rheumatologist with ankylosing spondylitis, AS. Some of you may not be familiar with AS. In just simple layman's terms, I like to just say that, tell people that it's basically like an arthritis of the entire spine, also affecting bilateral SI joints into the buttocks, into the thighs. and affecting the joints throughout the body. That's kind of my way of just kind of giving people just a light rundown where they're like, oh, what is that? Well, at that time then, I was started on different medications. I have been on so many prescription medications throughout this time, from approximately 2002 on, that I could not sit here and name them all without going through all my back medical records, and that's just not something that I can even have the energy to do, and I'm not even going to try. If there are ones that pop into my head, I will mention them, but so at 2011 then, I was referred to a pain management clinic in my area. And at that time started with multiple injections in the spine, in the SI joints. I went through a couple ablations in those areas as well. Moving on to 2014, I think approximately 2012. And my dates, don't take them set in stone because they could be off by a year or two. Again, I'm not going back to pinpoint every detail. I just can't do that. So I'd say probably back in 2012, I worked at this local hospital actually, where I was sent for my first pain management. In 2012, at that time, it got to the point where I physically was no longer able to do my job anymore due to the chronic pain. In the meantime, I had, and there's a lot more to that story, which I will go back and touch base on in later lives and stuff. In 2014, I was approved for disability. I believe it took 2 tries. The second time I had an attorney through my long-term disability company through my work that worked with me, and the second time I got it approved immediately, actually. And that was based on the diagnosis of, at the time, spondyloarthropathy. I'll have to go back and look at the exact name. Basically ankylosing spondylitis, but it was referred to as something else for them. Anyway, I can go through that later too. So after that, again, we're still just living the life of chronic pain. In 2021 then, I actually was diagnosed with breast cancer on top of everything else. I'm several generations. My great-grandma had breast cancer. My grandmother had breast cancer. She had a single mastectomy. My mother then had breast cancer. And then, actually, not even a year before I was diagnosed, my sister was also diagnosed with breast cancer. I ended up having to have bilateral mastectomies, radiation, and went through from, I'd say, approximately 2022 to 2024, or 2025, I apologize. Many surgeries, breast reconstruction surgeries. Also had to have a hysterectomy, due in part to the breast cancer and extensive endometriosis. They also went in and cleaned all of that out. So that is just a very, very basic rundown of just whenever the majority of the big medical issues in my life started. Now, like I said, there are so many other conditions and comorbid conditions that I now have that also have went along with these and have come along throughout the years. Um, so I am going to stop there for right now, and I will be back next time to start going a little more in depth with everything in my story. You know, I've been wanting to do this for some time, for several years. I'd say it's been in the back of my mind. I have just not been in a good position to do it, mentally, physically, emotionally, pain-wise. I feel right now there is so much going on with chronic pain patients that everyone right now needs to get out there and tell their story, to try and help one another. There are things going on, that are not okay in the way chronic pain patients are being treated. And, I want to make sure that people know they're not alone. You are not alone. There are so many of us out there. So, again, thank you, and please follow along for more. Have a good day.